Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the Gamut Network. I have to say, I am so excited for today's interview because as Tony and I just had a little moment before we started recording, we both really kind of love surprises and getting into things that maybe we didn't think we were going to. So I think today's interview is going to be one of those super fun, energetic moments.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
with that, Tony, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here, Mindy. I'm glad to finally meet you face to face, even though we're not actually face to face.
I know, but it feels kind of like we are.
It feels better,
Literally.
though.
It's the
Right.
new normal. This is face to face,
Yeah,
right?
perfect. I'll
Tony,
take it.
can you start from the beginning, which is where we always like to start, and just kind of fill us in on a little bit of who is Tony Jackson?
Okay, so let's see here. It started many days and many moons ago in a hospital on a military base in South Korea. I was born and sprung into the world, and I did some things. Okay, now I'll actually tell you the rest of my story. I come from a military family. My dad served in the army for 30 plus years. I was incidentally born overseas in South Korea. I was diagnosed with arthrogryposis. I moved around a lot. Being in a military family, you move around a lot. Let's see here. After Korea, I
Can
moved
you
from
tell
Korea.
us? I'm sorry to
Good.
interrupt. Can you just explain to us a little bit about your condition?
Yeah,
Because
sure, of
this is
course.
actually
Yeah.
the first time I've heard of this.
Oh, well, hello and welcome.
Well,
Um,
welcome.
So arthrogryposis is a congenital condition, meaning from birth, and it's essentially a contracture of the joints.
Mm.
And just like many other disabilities, there's a huge spectrum of severity, if you will. Some people can walk, and some people have fairly fully functioning limbs, and other people like me use a power wheelchair. And then other folks, not only do they use wheelchairs, but some people need assistance breathing. So it's just kind of all over the board. But my specific um, diagnosis of arthrogryposis, I can't use my legs, I can't use my arms. I'm just really kind of like from the neck up, very active. So
Extremely. And may I point out, as I did previously, your voice is like magic.
I'm
It's
also
so,
for hire. So there.
yeah, well, clearly. That's another reason why we wanted to put the spotlight on you. So, being part of a military family and having to move around a lot, I would imagine that was another layer of a challenge in with your needs. Was it?
Yeah, yes, it was, but my parents did a lot of fighting for me that I may never know about. Childhood was fairly normal, I guess you could I mean, as normal as it can be
Yeah.
anyway. I mean, I went to school on base just like everybody else. I had aides throughout the day that followed me around class to class and helped me in class and all of these other things. So, my parents did a lot of the legwork behind the scenes. I'm 5, I don't care what's going on. I'm just living my
Mhm.
life, right? So I don't know what's happening, but my parents did a lot of the legwork in the background to make sure that I had what I needed to be successful. And my parents really kind of just treated me like everybody else. I mean, if I got bad grades, I definitely knew about it.
Yes.
I'll even tell you, my dad once I was in like second or third grade and had a report card come back and it wasn't good. And my dad said to me, remember this distinctly, and I actually told him this not too long ago. He said to me, he says, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life weaving baskets?" And I'm crying and I'm like, "No, I don't want." And he said, "Well, you better get your act together then and get your grades up." And and there you go. So
There
I
you
mean,
go.
yeah.
No truer words. I love it. So we you went through school
Yep.
and then did you go to college?
Yeah, actually, to backtrack a little bit, I moved around so much that I actually went to 3 high schools in 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I went to high school my freshman year in New Jersey, and then we went back to South Korea for my sophomore and junior years, and then right before my senior year, I got ripped out of that high school and moved to Arizona in Sierra Vista, which is down south, for my 3rd and final high school. I
And
just
how was that process in terms of, I mean, that's difficult for anyone,
that
let
was
alone
rough.
having the layer of having a disability.
Oh, man,
I'm
it was
curious about
rough.
that part.
It was rough, and honestly, it wasn't rough from a disability standpoint. It was rough from a social standpoint. Freshman year is always awkward for kids, right? Like it's
Definitely.
just a weird place to be. You have full grown adults with little kids in the same place,
Yes.
right? And it's a weird dynamic. And sophomore and really your junior year is where you really start to come into your own a little bit, which is where I was my junior year of high school. And then I left and I had to start all over again. So senior year was rough because I didn't really have a lot of friends. I didn't really know anybody. And I couldn't wait to get out of high school and go to college and like
Sure.
be on my own. So we were in Arizona. I had a couple choices to go to school. The school in Tucson, which will remain nameless because they are the bitter rival, was too close, and Northern Arizona University was too far away in Flagstaff. It's kind of a straight line from the south to the north. So right in the middle was Tempe, Arizona, and Arizona State University, which is
Mm,
where I decided to go to school. Go Sun Devils! And
yes.
so that's where I went to school.
Amazing. And what did you major in?
That's a whole other. I know this is only supposed to last 20 minutes, but that story alone could last 15. I'll make it really short. So I went to college thinking I wanted to be a social worker. Went into the school of social work. By the time I hit my junior year, I said I don't want to do this.
Mm,
But I said, you know what? It's too late. I got to finish. What I didn't know is that it really wasn't too late. I could have probably just stayed and done whatever it is I wanted to, but I didn't know what it is I wanted to do. So I just finished it up and left. Trying to find work, couldn't find a social work job. Nothing that I knew I could do anyway at that time. 2 years later, I went back to school because all through my life, everybody says, "Oh, you got a really good voice." You even said it to me a few minutes
yes.
ago.
First
You got a
thing I
really
said,
good
I
voice.
think.
You got a really good voice, right? And so you should go into radio. Have you ever thought about going into radio? And I never really did, even though everybody says, "Oh, you should go into radio." So I said, you know what? I'm going to go into radio.
I'm
So
gonna listen to those people.
right. I should have
Yeah,
listened to them when I was like 12 and not when I was like 23.
no, but
Um,
that's about being a kid.
Sure, of
Yeah.
course. And so I quit my job, my corporate cubicle farm job. And no offense to anybody who works in a cubicle farm, it's a perfectly fine way to live
Yeah.
and earn money. So I quit my job. I said I'm going to go back to Arizona State. I already got the undergraduate credits, like the general education credits. I can get in, get a broadcast journalism degree, and get out in 2 years. So I went back to school, and one of the first things I did was I found the college radio station, which ended up being one of the greatest things I ever did for myself. I loved that place. Anybody who's watching this or listening, if you've ever done college radio, you know how wonderfully awesome that environment is. So 2 years was up and I wasn't ready to leave yet.
Mm.
So I stayed for another 3 years because so I was like ultra super senior at that point. Um, because so while I was in school, I needed another foreign language because I had taken Korean because I don't actually speak Korean, even though my mom's Korean. I'm sorry,
Mm.
everybody. I'm sorry. So I needed another language because I wasn't going to do a Korean again. And so I decided to take German. That's another 10-minute story I won't get into right now. So I took German and I loved it. I was like, this is a great language. And so I stayed in school. I did a double major in broadcast journalism and German, and which is why it took another additional 3 years because I just loved everything I was doing at the time. I was working at the radio station, which is where I started my first foray into voiceover. And I was like, wow, this
Mm.
is really cool. I'll get to that in a second. Did the German thing, loved that too. I love the culture. I love the language. I love all my German friends that I've met. Hello, if you're watching this, by the way. But going back to the radio station, that's where I really started to say, wow, this is really fun. I really enjoy doing this. And I did everything I could at the radio station pretty much. I did a music show. I was the heavy metal director at the station for like 4 or 5 years because I love that. I started voicing commercials at the radio station, and that's where I really got my first taste of voiceover. I was like, this is really fun. And so I started doing that, and I eventually worked my way into the radio production director job over there. I started doing radio imaging, which is all the stuff you hear on the radio, like you're listening to 93.7 or
Mm.
whatever stuff like that, right? That's radio imaging. So I started doing that. It was really a lot of fun. And then I became station manager, did that for a while, all kinds of stuff. And I did sports, I did basketball, football, baseball, all those things. And I loved it. I loved being behind the microphone. Just something about it.
Did
As I
you
was
also love it? I'm going to make an assumption here, so please, disagree. But I'm curious if being behind the microphone made it feel like it was a level playing field.
Yes, that is certainly a fair statement. And one thing was, so when I was doing my music shows, so I have a friend who's a DJ. He's still on the air today here in town, and he would listen to me sometimes, and he says, "Man, I couldn't even tell that you weren't using your hands to to get on air and play the music and do all those things because I just figured out a way to make it smooth, right?"
I mean,
And
that in and of itself is amazing.
I mean, that's a compliment coming from my friend who works at a commercial professional radio station. And we were talking one day and he was like, "Yeah, you sound pretty good." And honestly, he's like, "I can't even tell that you're not using your hands to do this. It's amazing." Because I use a little mouth stick to push buttons and move the faders and do all those things. And so I just figured it out, right? So yeah, it was kind of a level playing field. And I was respected for the job I did, and it didn't matter that I use a wheelchair, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us who have a disability, that's what we ultimately want. We just want to be respected for what we can do and not what we look like, right? Or what we sound
Absolutely.
like. So,
And I think you really proved that, right? By of the success that you had, certainly at the radio station, how you climbed that ladder.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. And again, that goes back to my parents for whooping my ass when I was a kid. So,
But I agree. I think it always goes back to the parents, obviously, because I'm a parent of a child with disability. I'll take all the credit.
yeah, you should, and you should.
Totally kidding.
Yeah. So as I was coming to the end at the radio station, I kind of came to the realization that most people who start in broadcast media or anything really start in small places or small markets, right? We'll just use broadcasting as the example. You start in a small market and you work your way up to bigger markets. And I said to myself, most small markets aren't really friendly for people with disabilities, right? There might not be transportation infrastructure. Caregivers will be even harder to come by because it's already hard as it is living in a bigger city.
I need to underscore that for a second, though, because these are things that an able bodied person wouldn't have to think about, right?
Right,
Or in a
exactly.
small market. So that's one of the purposes of this show is to kind of really bring clarity to all the things that you had to think about that somebody else didn't for, as it relates to where your job could be.
If I didn't have to consider that, I definitely would have pursued a career in radio
Yeah.
because it
But
would
you
have been
did.
no problem for me to move to Montana
Yeah.
or West Virginia or wherever, right? It wouldn't have been a problem for me. I'd just pack my stuff and go. But I had to consider that. And I had never moved away and lived on my own somewhere before.
Mm.
Right. And so that's a very scary thought. If I didn't have to rely on other people, it wouldn't matter because moving around all my life, moving around is nothing for me.
Right.
And so I decided to put the radio dreams away in the corner, and they just sat there for years. It was 2000, God, 7. I wanted to get out of Arizona at that point. I was like, I know a ton of people here, but I need something new, right? And I will tell you right now, I'm cursed as a military brat because I moved around my whole life, and the urge to move hasn't left me.
Isn't that so? So it becomes your new normal. It becomes your normal, not new normal. It becomes your normal to constantly have change in your life.
It is, and what's funny is that I don't think my brothers and sisters do the same. I'll say this now, and it'll make more sense when I tell the rest of the story. Out of everybody in my family, I'm the one who should move the least.
Yeah.
But out of everyone in my family, I'm the one who moves the most.
I think that's fascinating.
And I'll get to the rest of the story. So I moved to Virginia in 2007 to go live with my brother. His best friend and I pack a U-Haul. My brother flies out here, and the three of us in a U-Haul drive across the country to Virginia. I lived there for about a year and a half. Things aren't going well. My brother was working radio promotions, so he was like doing street promotion at the time, and I was thinking that might be a way for me to get in,
Yeah.
to a radio station there. Didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. I had explored voiceover a little bit more while I was there, but I didn't really know how to get into it. So, I brought the little dream out from the corner for a minute and, pet it and, reminded it that I was still here. and then I put it back in the corner. About a year and a half later, things just weren't working out. Oh, I have to go back for a second, and this will tie into the whole story. So my birthday, 2007, Major League Soccer has their championship game at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. It's my birthday that day. I have to go celebrate somehow. So I scrape up whatever money I have together. I buy 4 tickets because nobody else has money in the house either. We drive to the stadium that day. I'm sitting in the wheelchair section with a bunch of other folks in wheelchairs. And a guy sitting next to me looks at me. He notices I'm in a manual chair that day. He says, "Hey, have you ever heard of the sport power soccer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd heard of it. Somebody had told me about it a couple years earlier." And he says, "You ever thought about playing?" And I was like, "No, it didn't seem like it was a thing for me because I had it in my head that this was a sport, that, everybody goes out for ice cream and wins medals and stuff like that. And I want competition because I love competition." So he says, "Here, take this DVD, watch it. And if you like it, find a team in your area." I go home, DVD sat on my desk for 3 weeks. One day I'm sitting at home bored. I pop it in, and it is a highlight reel of the 2007 World Cup in Tokyo.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, holy crap, these people are doing things in power wheelchairs that everybody in a power wheelchair has ever dreamed of doing. You're whipping around, you're driving around super fast and doing all these things. And I was like, this is incredible. I got to find something. So 2008, I moved back to Arizona. I applied to grad school because I can't get enough school for some
I love
reason.
it. Yeah.
So I applied to grad school to study German, went back to the radio station because the then faculty advisor was moving and asked me to take over for her. And so I said, of course, I love that radio station. Of course, I will carry on the torch for you, of course. So I took that job. I started grad school. I think I was on the air for a little bit, but it wasn't really my place to be on the air anymore. That was for the students at that point.
Got
I
it.
was the big adult,
Yeah.
right? So I didn't really do a lot of on-air stuff anymore, but the dream never left. But something else came along. January 2009, I'm going to the grocery store, and I'm going by the student rec center, and I see a little sandwich board outside that says Arizona Disabled Sports. And something told me to go inside and see what was going on. And sure enough, there was a power soccer tournament going on.
Wow.
And so I'm like, this is it. I've been looking for this. So I go inside, I talk to some folks and say, hey, we practice in at this place every, Monday and Wednesday or whatever it was. Come by and check it out. So the next week I came by and checked it out. And I was like, I need to be here. This is my thing. Right. So the following week I came back, they strapped on the foot guard. So it's like a metal cage that goes around the front of your chair to kick the ball around. They strapped one on me, and that was it. Now I'm playing power soccer. I'm the faculty advisor at the radio station, and I'm in graduate school teaching classes and
So
studying.
is this like, did you take a moment and say, wow, I love my life right now?
No, I did not, because I was so like neck deep in my day-to-day activities. I never really had the time to stop to think about what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 2.5 years until I graduated and got the master's degree in German studies. So that was done, but I was still doing the radio station for a little bit, and I was still playing power soccer. So it's 2010-ish at this point. So I live in Phoenix, and there is a Center for Independent Living called Ability 360 here in Phoenix. We're the largest in the state and one of the largest in the country. They were building a new state-of-the-art, universally designed fitness center.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, it's 45,000 square feet. It cost $13 million to build. It's gorgeous. It
That
still exists
sounds it.
today. And so a friend of mine had gotten hired there as their fitness coordinator, the very first one. And I don't know how I found out that he was working there, but I saw that they were hiring, so I decided to apply because I needed a job. I got the job, and I was hired as a receptionist there when it opened in 2011. So it's a fully accessible fitness center in Phoenix. Ramps, elevators, push buttons, pools.
And it's for everyone.
It is
It's
open to the
able
public.
body and people with disabilities.
It is open to the public, but obviously the attraction for the disability community is that there is a lot of accessibility in there.
So I'm gonna pause from there. I'm going to now ask you, like, what are you focusing on now? Where are we
Okay.
now?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So to fast forward the timeline of the story a little bit, 2012. So I'm still playing power soccer. The folks at Power Soccer Shop, a company in Minnesota that makes all the chairs that we used to play, knows I have a radio background. They asked me to move out there because they want to start live streaming tournaments. So
Amazing.
So I left my job and I moved to Minnesota. Started broadcasting power soccer. I did a national tournament, and then we went to Paris that year. I did a tournament in Paris, and I've been doing that ever since. I have I
As a sportscaster?
as a commentator. So my
Okay,
broadcasting dream has come out of the corner now,
love
and
it.
so I've been able to do that. So I've done play by play for pretty much every major national and international tournament since 2013. I've done the World Cup, I've done South American championships, I've done European championships. I'm going to the World Cup in Sydney next year, which will be a lot of fun. So I've done that, which has been great.
Isn't it
Um,
amazing how, wait, I'm just going to pull together all of the key parts of your story in your life of travel, using your voice as a tool, soccer, that pieced into that one pamphlet that that gentleman gave to you has now kind of come to where you are today. I love it that we've really gotten a great sense of how everything kind of worked out so beautifully.
it has. Fast forward a little bit. After Minnesota, I moved to New Hampshire, coached and played over there. And then I moved back to Arizona 2 years ago. It's warmer here. I like it. So I'm sitting at work one day. A guy comes in and says, "Hey, are you going to that voiceover workshop at the local community college down the street?" I had no idea what he was talking about. So I did a little research. I was like, "Oh, cool. I'm going to go check this out. This is my last opportunity because if I don't do it now, I'm never going to actually have the motivation to do it." So I go to this workshop. It's like a little recruitment seminar for people who want to get into voiceover. The lady there is like, "Oh yeah, you sound good. I could see some potential in you. I want to invite you into our program." So I do this program, which was a lot of money, but it was worth it,
Good.
because it gave me a little bit more training. It gave me some demos that I can use to market myself, and it was really the springboard for me to get into the voiceover community.
If anybody out there listening wants to get involved in this beautiful voice, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
TonyJacksonVO.com.
Everybody, Tony Jackson, Tony with a Y, JacksonVO.com is how you connect to this amazing man who has lived so much life and so much more to go. And on that note, Tony, I like to end every session with a question that I ask everybody, and that's
I'm
about the
ready.
power of a vision board and manifesting what you want to happen in your lifetime. If
Hmm.
we got to peek onto Tony's vision board, what would we see?
So if you're looking at my vision board, I'm still doing power soccer, right? I'm still competing. I'm still playing. I'm still doing play-by-play commentary around the world. My first business, Parasports Live, which focuses on live streaming adaptive sports, is really doing its thing now. I'm traveling around the country, broadcasting adaptive sports from around the country and around the world. I'm still doing voiceover work as well. I'm the voice of, a major television network, right? You hear my voice on radio stations. I'm living in a home with a room dedicated to a recording studio. Um, and I'm just living my best life at that point. That's what my vision board looks like.
I love it. I love it. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It was, we could have talked all day, and I'm only disappointed that we only have a short amount of time. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, if anybody wants to find out more information or get connected to Tony, of course, you can go to Gamut Management to find out how to book him. But also, you could go to TonyJacksonVO.com. Again, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you would like to be on the Gamut Network, please email us at talent@gamutmanagement.com to find out how you can be a guest. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Gamut Network, as well as follow us on social media at Gamut Management. Thank you again, Tony.
Bye.
Bye.